Okay, YouTube, this is a very brief and straightforward video on how to use your calculator in order to evaluate trig functions for given angles, okay? And so when we look at these, we say sine, say, of 37 degrees, for instance here. We're saying that there exists some right triangle that has a 37-degree angle on it. You know, my picture isn't very good here, but if we said this is 37 degrees, what we're doing is we're saying that the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse side, your calculator is actually going to do this for you. And instead of giving you some ratio, what it's going to do is it's going to give you a decimal. So first things first, we're going to agree that we should always go at least more than 2 decimal places, but we should say that we'll, in this video, always round our decimals to 3 places, okay? So when we say sine of 37 degrees, this is just this simple. You're going to pull your calculator out, and one really important thing is this. Usually you can go into a mode button. My calculator doesn't have a mode button, but you notice that I have a little rad button down here. It's really cool. It's rad. So we say radians. We can flip it from radian measurement to degree measurement. Radian to degrees. We want to make sure we're in degrees because all of these angles are being measured in degrees. But essentially, we want the sine of 37 degrees. On this calculator, I had to type in 37, and then I just hit my sine key, and it says, well, if you were to take the opposite side, if this is a right triangle with a 37-degree angle, the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse length would be about 0.601 81502 da 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 da. So this is an approximate value, but we want to take this approximate value and round it to 3 decimal places. That is, if I were to stop at this 1 right here, we say, I notice that an 8 lives next door. So this is approximately, we're going to write approximately, 0.602 is what that sine ratio would come out to be. And I'm even going to write for emphasis here, ish, okay? It's approximately, so it's not an exact value. We can do this for a tangent of 81, so we want the tangent of 81. On most calculators, you can just type in tan 81, hit enter. On this, I have to type in my 81 first, then hit my tangent key, but we get approximately 6.31, and this would become a 4. So approximately 6.314. That is, if you had a right triangle here, you can imagine this as being like some 81-degree angle down here. If you were to compare the opposite side over the adjacent side, then we would say that this adjacent side would fit into the opposite side here 6.314-ish times. So that is what our calculator is doing for us. And then last but not least, we say cosine of 11-degree angle here. We just say 11 cosine. We get approximately 0.982. So approximately 0.982. So it's not so much these trig functions that I'm worried about anybody evaluating on a calculator, but so much as the reciprocal trig function. So when you look at these, well, one thing I want to point out here is this. Looking at my calculator, you'll notice that I have sine, cosine, and tangent functions on here. We have hyperbolic sine, cosine, and tangent functions. These are not the same thing as secant here. So if I were to hit, say, second, you'll notice that I have a sine inverse, cosine inverse, tangent inverse. This is also not the same thing as what I wanted to use for a secant button. You're going to notice that there is no secant key on this. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to use the fact that secant of 72 degrees is the reciprocal of cosine of 72 degrees. That is to say that if you ever want to, unless you have a special calculator that has a secant, cosecant, and cotangent button, if you ever want to find the value of, say, the secant of 72 degrees, what we're going to have to do first is we're going to have to find the cosine of 72 degrees, which is this value here, the whole thing, not rounded. And we want to reciprocate this. So we could say 1 divided by this answer. That's one way to do it. Or another way to express this is find this 1 over x key. And on most calculators, you're going to see this key, this 1 over x key. That's the same thing as x to the negative 1, because recall a negative exponent, you would move this downstairs. So essentially, x to the negative 1 or 1 over x, this is our reciprocal key. Reciprocal key. And so if I want to find now the secant of 72 degrees, what we're going to do is, again, on my calculator, I'm going to find the cosine of 72, and I'm going to hit this key right here, and it reciprocates it for me. So I get approximately 3.236. So the secant of 72 is approximately 3.236 units. We say the cosecant of 64, well, that would be the same thing as 1 over the sine of 64. So we'd have to find the sine of 64 first. So we have 64 sine. We're going to reciprocate this. We get 1.113-ish. 1.113-ish. And then for the cotangent of 1 degree, we'd have to find the tangent of 1 degree first. Oops. Clear. 1 degree, the tangent of this, and then reciprocate, and we get 57.2899. So that'd be 57.28, and this would become a 10 here, so 290. So 57.290-ish. Okay, and these are approximate values, and that's how you use a calculator to evaluate trig functions of degree angles. Cheers.